I want to check the TEKS just to make sure I am on track with my state standard. The TEKS for first grade plot structure is 1.8C. Describe plot elements, including the main events, the problem, and the resolution for text read aloud and independently. My focus for this group will really be looking at the complete language of the TEKS, but also keeping in mind we're looking at their description of plot structure and plot elements more on the independent reading side in this group versus a read aloud. For this small group lesson to take no more than 20 minutes. It will be another guided reading lesson, part 2, since we've used part of this book last time I visited this classroom with this particular group. So we'll spend about 5 minutes in the before reading again, reviewing what had happened so far, talk about our predictions, and then I will give them their reading job. It's going to be to read to find out what happens to Sydney and her friends now that a shark has appeared. They will also need to mark the plot structure of this book, and I will explain to them how to do that using these post-it tabs. So I get these on Amazon and I just write on them what the different things I want them to mark. So for this one, C would be mark the main character, P the main problem, and R the resolution. I like using them in text because if you take one off, the bottom part is transparent, so they can just stick it wherever the text evidence is right over it. So we'll go ahead and let them know about how to do that before they start reading. In the during reading, that'll be my time to listen in and prompt to each student. Again, I'm gonna let them spend about 5 to 7 minutes for this book. Even though we've read part of it already, we'll review it in the beginning, and then I'll just let them start reading on page 10. Certainly, if some of them want to go back a little bit, they can, but we're in guided reading, I really want them to use new text each time as much as possible. So after the lesson reading, then we'll come back, we'll discuss what happened to Sydney and her friends, and then we'll discuss the plot structure. Where did they mark where the characters were introduced? Where did they mark the main problem, and where did they mark the resolution? And this can lead us into the summary of fiction. So, we always say keep the story alive with CPR when it's a fiction story, because that aligns to the plot structure. So I think they're going to be excited. The teacher thinks they're going to be excited about marking things in text. So I'll get back with you and let you know how they do. So reflecting on the lesson that I taught today with Sydney the Sea Dragon, the kids came over to the table. They were excited to finish this book. We reviewed what had happened so far. We made predictions as far as what we thought was going to happen next, and their reading job today really entailed finding out what happened after the shark appeared based on their predictions that they made, and also I wanted them to be thinking about the plot structure. I then gave each one of them a strip of paper with the 3 tabs on it. Everybody had a C for character, everybody had a P for problem, and everybody had an R for resolution. That was really intriguing to them, but I could tell just in their questions and their apprehensions on it that they were going to need a higher level of support. They've never marked text evidence in a book quite like that before. So I got them, they started reading. I listened into each one read. Again, they're, reading a little bit above grade level already at this point in the year. Couple questions about the word swayed, the tail swayed. So I talked to them about how it moved back and forth. I could have certainly brought that up in the before reading if I would have kind of thought about it. A couple kids had inferred the meaning, so that's always a tricky one. Do I go ahead and introduce that vocabulary, or do I just discuss it? Because I don't do a lot of prompting to their oral reading, sometimes I think it's okay to kind of prompt with the discussion of inferring about the word meaning then, so I have something to talk about when we're prompting. The other issue with these kids is how to mark text evidence when you're thinking about answering questions when you read. So afterwards, we simply talked about what had happened in the text, and they were able to
with no problem tell me what the problem was, how it was resolved, and their thoughts about the book. So when I quickly asked them, well, who was the main character? They said Sydney. What was the problem? A shark came and tried to eat him. How was that problem resolved? Well, they hid behind Sydney and the shark didn't see him. So no problem in identifying the key events of the plot structure. What they had a hard time with was taking the Post-it tabs and marking them in the text where that exact wording was. They wanted to mark a lot of the information from the picture, which is okay, but I also want to challenge them to start putting some thought into how it's worded in the text. So we did the character together, that was no problem. Great discussion on where they thought we should mark the problem. Some thought it was when the first character saw the shark. The others, a couple of them thought, no, we have to put it over here when the first dialogue about the shark comes in. So that was cool. And then in the resolution, a lot of them wanted to just stick it on the last page. And I said, where's the text evidence that tells us how our problem was solved? So I upped my support a little bit there, gave them a couple questions to think about, and then they all came up with consensus. So I was figuring this wouldn't be an easy task for them because they've never done it before, but I definitely think it's going to be one they need to come back to. Plus they enjoyed it, and the teacher and I even talked about other ways she can use the Post-it tabs to have this group start marking specific things for text evidence in other books they read as well. So all in all, a great day in first grade.